Hi, it's Paddy Hirsch at Marketplace. So we're talking about Tier 1 capital today because it's at the heart of a lot of conversations that people are having about the health of banks. A lot of people are trying to work out how to keep banks as healthy as possible, and they're really focused on this thing called Tier 1 capital. Right? It's absolutely, it's kind of like the beating heart of the bank. So to describe what Tier 1 capital is, I like to use my favorite analogy when it comes to tiers, which is wedding cakes. Right? So you've all been to weddings, where they have these massive wedding cakes with 3 tiers. Right, so here's Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. This is a very nice wedding cake. It's John and Julie's wedding. And here we are. Here's John and Julie on the top of the cake here. Here we are, getting married. And so we've got 3 tiers of the cake. Right? Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. All right. And if any of you have ever eaten one of these wedding cakes, you know the way this works is what they do is they take the first kind of 2 tiers off, and then they really cut into the 3rd tier. So it's the 3rd tier that actually gets the knife. Here's the knife we're going to use. All right. So, and the 3rd tier is the bit that gets distributed to all of the guests, like all the hoi polloi guests who come. They get a slice of the 3rd tier. All right. 2nd tier is kind of given off to the top table. So this is everyone gets a bit of this. Everyone gets some of this. And then Tier 2 goes to kind of the top table. All right. But Tier 1, the top tier, okay, the nice little piece of the centerpiece, well, obviously they take the decoration off the top, and they take this, and this is certainly traditional where I come from, is they take it, you pop it in a cake tin, put the lid on, and you keep it for 20 years, then you eat it on your 20th anniversary. All right, so you're obviously keeping that for a long time. So what on earth does this have to do with banks? Okay, well, in banks, what we have is we have Tier 1 and Tier 2 capital. We don't actually have Tier 3 capital, but there's lots of other capital in the bank. And this kind of 3rd tier of capital that they have is depositors' money. And the reason it's like this big piece of cake that gets divided up is because it's the first thing to go. Because if you're a depositor and you put your money into a bank and you think that the bank is threatened, what do? You take your money out. And the bank has no control over that. It can't stop you taking your money out. It's your money, right? So if there's a run on the bank, this is the first thing to go. The 3rd tier disappears first. The 2nd tier is a little bit more controllable. It's made of all sorts of investments that the bank has made, and some types of preferred stock and that kind of thing. And that tier is much more controllable by the bank. But of course, those investments can be risky, so of course they can deteriorate in value fairly quickly. The Tier 1, the top tier, the stuff that's actually at the heart of the bank, is based around what's called shareholder equity. That's essentially the money that shareholders have put into the bank by buying shares. And then, of course, those shares have appreciated over time, and that creates cash. And so Tier 1 is the actual cash that belongs to the bank. Okay, that's the cash that is in the bank. And even if people sell their shares on the secondary market, the equity still exists in the bank. Now, there's some other things that go into Tier 1 capital. It's not just shareholder equity. There's some other types of occasionally preferred shares and that kind of thing. But this is what it is at the heart of these debates that are going on in a place called Basel right now. Now, we'd heard a little bit about Basel recently. It's a place where all of the sort of top banks get together, and the people involved in the banking system from around the world get together and debate how they should keep the banks healthy. So they're looking at Tier 1 capital, and they're saying, if there's a problem with this bank, okay, if it starts to fail, the depositor's money is going to go away, the investments may collapse, but at least if they've got a big chunk of capital at the heart of the bank, then it's going to be safe. So they're saying to themselves, some people are saying, well, in that case, it should only be shareholder equity, because that's the only real safe cash there is. And other people are saying, no, you should be allowed other types of equity as well, and maybe other types of preferred stock, and maybe some investments in other banks. So there's a lot of argument going on about what should actually be at the heart of the bank, what really keeps the bank super safe. Okay, and the risk is, of course, that if you allow your standards to relax too much, if you allow too many things to become part of Tier 1 capital, if those things do deteriorate, if those investments deteriorate over time, like say, for example, you have investments in foreign banks and those foreign banks collapse, then suddenly your Tier 1 capital is really badly eroded, and that's going to leave you and your shareholders and anyone who's involved in the bank badly needing a drink.